The FDA's own scientists voted against the approval of these peptides, and yet, an independent committee decided to ignore that recommendation. Last week, on July 23rd and 24th, 2026, a panel of experts met in Washington and voted in favor of opening a legal pathway for 6 peptides: BPC 157, TB 500, KPV, MOTS-c, Semax, and Epitalon. But if you've seen any video, reel, or post celebrating this as the approval of peptides, I need to tell you something before we continue. That's not exactly what happened, and it's precisely this difference between what was announced and what was actually decided that most influencers aren't explaining to you. Today, I'm going to show you the actual voting results, what this decision changes, and what it doesn't change in practice, and why some people are celebrating it when they probably shouldn't. Over the past 2 years, you've probably seen dozens of videos about BPC 157, TB 500, and Semax. Athletes, biohackers, Instagram doctors, longevity podcasts, everyone has been talking about the same peptides, promising the same results: faster muscle recovery, reduced inflammation, sharper mental focus, and tissue regeneration. It's as if the biohacking world had discovered a shortcut all at once. And now came the news everyone had been waiting for. A committee associated with the FDA, the world's most influential regulatory agency, voted in favor of these peptides. But here's the first point I need to make absolutely clear, because it's the foundation for everything that follows. This was a recommendation, not an approval. And that difference represents, quite literally, months or even years between it might eventually become legal and it's legal now. My commitment here is different from the rest of the internet. I'm not here to repeat the headline. I'm here to show you the actual voting numbers, the history behind this decision, and the interests at play, including concerns that the FDA's own scientists had already raised. I'm going to explain everything in a simple way, without unnecessary jargon, but without leaving out any important details. Because this isn't about chasing hype. It's about understanding what's really happening with your health and with your money. Stay with me until the end, because in the final section, I'll give you my honest conclusion, what this decision means for people who are already using peptides, and what I would do if I were thinking about starting now. Let's get into it. Before we can understand the controversy, we first need to understand what is actually being voted on. Peptides are essentially small fragments of proteins. They are short chains of amino acids that the body uses as messengers. They tell your cells what to do: repair this tissue, reduce this inflammation, release this hormone. The human body naturally produces thousands of peptides. What the biohacking movement has done over the past few years is take synthetic versions of these messengers and use them deliberately to achieve specific effects. The 3 names dominating the conversation are BPC 157, best known for its alleged effects on tissue healing and gut health; TB 500, commonly associated with muscle and tendon recovery; Semax, used for cognitive focus and mental clarity. The problem was never the idea itself. The problem is that until very recently, none of these compounds had a legal, regulated pathway to reach consumers. They were obtained from research-use-only suppliers, with no standardized quality control, no prescription requirements, and within a kind of gray market that grew alongside the hype on social media. And it's exactly that gray market that last week's vote was intended to address. Now think about this. The body that cast this vote is called the PCAC, the Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee. It is a panel of independent experts that advises the FDA on which substances may be included on the so-called 503A bulks list, the list of ingredients that licensed compounding pharmacies are allowed to use with a valid medical prescription. If a peptide isn't on that list, no pharmacy can legally compound it in the United States. That list determines whether or not there is a legal physician-supervised pathway for access. On July 23rd and 24, 2026, the committee evaluated 7 peptides, one by one. And here are the exact voting results, because this is where the story becomes interesting. BPC 157, approved by a vote of 8-6 with 1 abstention. KPV, approved by a vote of 8-6 with 1 abstention. TB 500, approved by a vote of 8-6 with 1 abstention. MOTS-c, approved by a vote of 7-5 with 2 abstentions. Semax, approved by a vote of 8-5 with 1 abstention. Epitalon, approved by a vote of 7-4 with 1 abstention. Peptide, DSIP, the only peptide that was rejected by a vote of 6-7. Notice something important. Not a single one of these votes was unanimous. Every decision was closely contested, with most ending in an 8-6 vote. That is not the picture of an overwhelming scientific consensus. It is the picture of a committee split almost down the middle. And here's the point that almost no one is emphasizing. Before the meeting, the FDA's own scientists had already recommended that none of the 7 peptides be added to the list. Their reasons? Inadequate chemical characterization, limited evidence of effectiveness in humans, and a lack of robust safety studies. In other words, the advisory committee, which is made up of external experts, not FDA employees, voted against the FDA's own scientific recommendation. That matters, because it completely changes the narrative that's been circulating. It wasn't, the FDA decided that peptides are safe. It was, a divided external committee chose to go against the warnings issued by the agency's own scientists. And there's one more detail that most videos are leaving out. This vote is only a recommendation. The final decision must still go through a formal rulemaking process, which includes a public comment period, a review of those comments, and only then the publication of a final rule. According to estimates from the industry itself, that process is expected to take anywhere from 12 months to well over a year. In other words, the most realistic expectation for legal availability is 2027, not today. Nothing changed legally overnight, and this is where the conflict of interest becomes much more apparent. This is where everything starts to feel strange. While FDA scientists were warning about the lack of data, companies in the performance and supplementation industry were already publicly celebrating the outcome of the vote before any rule had actually been implemented. One company in the sports performance industry even issued an official statement praising the committee and saying that this was the regulatory direction the peptide industry needed. Think about it. An advisory committee decides, by narrow margins, to go against the technical recommendation of the regulatory agency itself. And the first people to celebrate publicly, in an investor statement, are precisely those who stand to profit from the growth of this market. That alone does not prove that anything improper took place, but it does clearly show who has a direct financial interest in pushing the narrative that peptides have been approved faster than the regulatory reality actually allows. And that's exactly where the real risk lies for you, the person watching this video. First, nothing has changed in practice, at least not today. These peptides are still being sold primarily as research use only products, without clinical grade quality control, without formal medical supervision, and without any guarantee of purity or accurate dosing. Second, even if the regulatory process moves forward as expected, it would only allow these peptides to be compounded with a valid medical prescription, not sold over the counter. In other words, any future legal pathway will still require a physician. Continuing to buy from unregulated suppliers does not suddenly become safer just because an advisory committee voted in favor. Third, the reasons the FDA's own scientists gave for recommending against these peptides, limited human studies, inadequate chemical characterization, and insufficient safety data, remain exactly the same. The vote did not create any new studies. It did not change any scientific evidence. It only changed the potential future regulatory direction. That's really the key point. The science hasn't changed. The policy has. This reminds me of another moment in the history of medicine when market enthusiasm moved faster than the science. In the 1950s, thalidomide was introduced as a sedative that was considered safe for everyone, including pregnant women, before robust studies had established its effects on fetal development. Commercial excitement came before comprehensive safety data, and the result was one of the greatest regulatory tragedies of the 20th century, permanently changing how health agencies evaluate new compounds. I'm not saying that BPC 157 or Semax are the next thalidomide. That would be alarmist and inaccurate. But the lesson behind that story still applies today. When market enthusiasm moves faster than scientific evidence, history shows that it isn't the industry that pays the price. It's the consumer. And that's exactly the pattern we're seeing again now, although on a much smaller scale and with far greater visibility through social media. You may be wondering, so were these peptides banned again? No, they weren't banned before the vote. Since April 2026, all 7 peptides had already been removed from the list of restricted substances, but they had not yet been added to the list of permitted ingredients. In other words, they remained in a kind of regulatory limbo, available only through the research use only market. You may also be wondering, does this mean they're safe? Again, no. Clinical safety is not determined by a committee vote. It's established through controlled human studies conducted over time, and according to the FDA's own scientists, that's exactly what's still missing. So, what should you do with this information starting today? If you're already using any of these peptides, the most important thing to understand is that nothing changed legally this week. The risks that existed before the vote, lack of standardization, absence of medical supervision, and uncertainty about purity still exist today. If you're thinking about starting, my advice is simple. Wait for the facts, not the hype. An advisory committee's recommendation is not the same as regulatory approval, and the difference between those two can amount to years. And if you follow biohacking influencers, start asking yourself one simple question whenever someone announces a regulatory victory. Who, besides you, benefits from this news spreading as quickly as possible? Sometimes the answer is no one in particular, but sometimes, as seems to be the case here, there is an entire industry hoping you won't take the time to read the fine print. At the end of the day, biohacking isn't about chasing the next trend faster than everyone else. It's about understanding what's behind the trend before deciding whether it's right for you. If this video helped you see this news from a different perspective, let me know in the comments. Do you think this vote was driven by science or by market pressure? I'd really like to hear your thoughts. And if you want to keep learning what's really behind the latest longevity and biohacking trends without the filter of social media hype, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's exactly what BioHuman OS is all about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.